to 3 and Out on TV Piedmont Channel 60. I'm your host, Brian Carter, alongside Ryan Orlovsky. This will be the last 3 and Out show ever, so enjoy it while it lasts. What's the rundown, Ryan?
On the opening tip, we argue on who is the NBA's MVP. We'll get to our final emails on the 7th inning stretch, and on third down, we'll list off our most overrated athletes of all time. As always, if you have questions, comments, or would like to share your thoughts about the show, please email us at 3andoutsports@gmail.com. An emailer gets you a free 3 and Out pen.
It's been asked so often, who is the next MJ? And it always seems to be LeBron and Kobe's names that pop up. But we won't compare these men to his airness. It's like comparing Peter to Jesus. Both great, but Jesus is the bomb, yo. Anyways, as the NBA season winds down, it's time for us to choose who the MVP is. I'm with Kobe, and Orlovsky's got LeBron. Why do you think LeBron is the MVP?
Well, when one looks at his accomplishments in total and adjusts for both his minutes and his team's pace, he's having one of the greatest seasons in NBA history. I mean, his side, his speed, his vision, they're all factors that have improved from last season, and he's continuously making the guys around him better. 7.3 assists per game, Brian only has 4.9. That proves my point right there.
Well, you know, you can get into the whole statistics, but when they're that close, it's kind of, you got to throw those out. Now, Kobe's an 11-time All-Star. He won the MVP award last year, but you can't base it on past success either, so you got to throw that out. But when you look at, it's like when we talked about T.O. in the last show, if you make a team better, that's an MVP candidate. And LeBron and Kobe do just that. These are two teams that stride for stride are the best teams in the NBA. Night in, night out, these guys perform at the ultimate best. But when you look at who makes their team better, I think that is the ultimate deciding factor. That is the UDF. And when I look at the UDF for Kobe Bryant, it's that he makes his team better. The Lakers score 108 points per game. That's the #1 offense in the NBA. And Bryant kept his team winning with that highest scoring offense at a time when Andrew Bynum was out for half the season. So he had to pick up the slack like that. He had 2 times that he helped the Lakers break a win streak against Boston, that one of them would have been 20 in a row, which would have been a record. And again, you got to throw in the fact that there's a tougher conference. Kobe plays in the West, where there are 8 600 teams. LeBron plays in the East, where there are only 3 teams that are above 600.
Well, you also got the Celtics in that are a much better team than I think any team in the West is.
You did. Yeah, you're right.
And LeBron has his team ahead of those Celtics. And LeBron, he may not be putting up the same numbers that he had a year ago, but he's third in he's adjusted his plus minus. He's third in that, and he's having one of the greatest seasons in NBA history. I mean, on a per-minute basis, he's averaging more points, more rebounds, more assists, more blocks and steals than he did last season, and he had a sensational season last year. And he has the league's best PER, and for those of you that don't know what the PER is, it's something that ESPN developed to kind of, you know, rank players from previous seasons. And the PER is set to the league average at 15 and is adapted to aspects regarding pace and minutes played. It's a long and complicated process, but as it turns out, LeBron's PER has approached that of Michael Jordan. We said we weren't going to compare it, but now we actually can, because they're the only 2 people in NBA history, when you use this statistic, that have above a 31 PER.
Right, but you also mentioned his stats from last season, and we got to throw those out. Yeah, he has 7 triple-doubles on the year. That's amazing. But I want to look head-to-head here, and you also mentioned the fact that, yeah, his team is above the Celtics, but do you know what the Cavs have done against the Celtics this year? He's gone 1-2 against them. Kobe Bryant, on the other hand, 2-0. And the cool thing is that the Cleveland Cavaliers, they are the best home team in basketball, without a doubt. They're like, what, 37-1, something like that. That one loss at home came against Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. And you look head-to-head. Yeah, James outdoes Kobe in the statistical department, but Kobe does have some edge over him in the three-point, beyond the three-point arc. The free throw line, ridiculous difference there. Kobe shooting 87%, LeBron only 77%. In the turnover ratio, Kobe turns the ball over 2.6 times a game compared to 3.1 to LeBron. But the more head-to-head that I'm looking at is against each other when they play each other. And when I look at that, the Lakers are 2-0 against the Cavs this season, taking one at home in L.A., in which Kobe had 20 points and 12 assists. And then you look at when they played in Cleveland, where Kobe had 19 points and LeBron had 16. And then you look at versus the elite teams in the NBA. Those are 4 teams that I consider elite: the Lakers, the Celtics, the Magic, and then you have the Cavaliers as well. Kobe is 4-2 against those elite teams. LeBron James only 2-5.
And you talk about all these records, but at the same time, I mean, LeBron James, it's one player does not make an entire team. He definitely makes his team better, and that's what you said was the ultimate deciding factor, is if an MVP makes his team better.
But he has a great...
He clearly does that.
He has a great supporting cast, though. LeBron does. Delonte West and Ilgauskas.
But you can't say that Kobe doesn't have it. Strong players.
He does,
around
but
him
Andrew
as well.
Bynum's been out half the season. So, yeah, he's had Paul Gasol the whole year, but that's just one guy there. So, I mean, they both have relatively good supporting cast. And it really comes down to just a head-to-head battle here. You can't average in the statistics. And you know, we've sitting here talking about who's the NBA MVP. And one guy you throw out right off the bat is Dwayne Wade. Unfortunately, he's thrown out of contention from the get-go because, yeah, his team is playing they have a winning season, but it's barely. It's like 5 games above 500. And I believe, yeah, without him on that team, if you're going to look, I have a feeling that if LeBron James gets this, it's because he's the best. It's not because he's the best player in the game, because I think that's Kobe Bryant. I think it's because he's the best, the most valuable to his team. But when you throw that in, you also got to look at guys like Joe Johnson. Where would the Hawks be without Joe Johnson? Where would Dwayne Wade be, or where would the Heat be without Dwayne Wade? Where would the Cavs be without LeBron James? I really think the Lakers would still be a 500 team. I don't see that so much with the Cavs, but it'd be pretty close. So I think both of these guys could make a great case. Unfortunately, people like Dwayne Wade don't have a shot in this.
I know you don't want to bring the past into it, but look what the Cavs were like when LeBron first came to them, and look what they've developed into. Now they're one of the elite teams of the NBA. They weren't like that before they had LeBron James. He's only been in the league for 5 years now, and look, he's really turned around NBA in Cleveland. I mean, LeBron James, I mean, he's I think the MVP honor has got to go to LeBron James this year. I mean, you want to base it on what he's done this year, and you can base it off statistics. You don't want to do that, but at the same time, he does have better stats than Kobe does.
If you do that, it's so freaking unfair because wasn't it back in the 05-06 season where Kobe Bryant averaged 35.1 points per game? He scored 81 points in a game. He held his team in contention. They were above 500. They didn't win a whole lot, but he had nobody on that team helping him out. Guy has 35 points a game and does not get the MVP award. That's a shame. That's an absolute shame. So if you're going to say that, well, just because he's for putting up good numbers and stuff like that, well, I mean, Kobe's been that route.
Well,
and
he's
he didn't get anything.
But Kobe got the MVP last year.
Yeah, finally. But it wasn't even
well,
his
now
best season
finally
at all.
LeBron needs to get one.
LeBron's still young, though. And, I mean, to me, it really honestly could go either way. I really think it's going to boil down to the East Coast is going to have this big bias for LeBron James because they've seen him more often. The West Coast is going to have that bias for Kobe Bryant because they see him more often. And there's going to be that handful going for
He's
Dwayne
the king
Wade.
for a reason, that's all I'm saying.
Dwayne Wade and Dwight Howard are going to be a handful of the votes. But I honestly won't have a problem with either choice, but I prefer Kobe Bryant winning that. It's now time for our game ball. Who's your game ball going to?
I got to give mine to Ichiro Suzuki of Japan for what he did in the World Baseball Classic last night. 4 for 6, the 2 RBIs in the top of the 10th inning to give Japan their second straight World Baseball Classic title. There's only been 2. They got them both.
That was pretty awesome. My game ball is going to go to Shaquille O'Neal. As we're talking about Kobe, you always got to throw Shaq in there. Shaq has become the 5th all-time scorer in the NBA, passing Moses Malone. Unfortunately, he won't get any further than that because Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt to Stilt's about 4,000 points ahead of him. Shaq a little bit bitter about it, though. Thought that, he thinks he should be at number 2 or number 3 at this point if he hadn't missed so much time with injuries or missed, quote unquote, 5,000 free throws, which is probably about accurate. So you can look those numbers up on your own. That's my game ball. Shaquille, Shaq. We're nearing an end, but straight ahead is the 7th inning stretch. Don't go anywhere.